All right, welcome tonight. You're listening to KXU 96.1, Poor People's Revolutionary Radio, FM, LP. We penetrating the airwaves and your brainwaves tonight, y'all. We're coming real. We're coming real with it. And we coming with the friction without no restrictions. Bring the light. The friction brings heat and heat brings the light. So get ready. So tonight we have a very special guest, a local Bay Area organizer, Senyaka Bryant. Senyaka Bryant's an organizer with the organization Cause Justa, Just Cause. He's also an organizer and leader of the Malcolm X grassroots movement here in Oakland, California. So he'll be joining us tonight. Welcome to Message to the Grassroots, brother.
Right on. Free the land, everybody. Good to be on the show.
All right. So tonight we're gonna talk about we've been having this running theme on the show, and that is talk regarding the FBI's counterintelligence report that was revealed, or they said was leaked, to Foreign Policy magazine, and it was published that the FBI has designated black groups such as Black Lives Matter and other folks out there on the front lines fighting and opposing white supremacy and white supremacy violence on many levels. And the FBI has done a report, and it is designating such people. If you're out there fighting against this archaic, parasitic, oppressive system, you're now going to be identified as what they call a black identity extremist. And so many are recognizing this as basically COINTELPRO 2.0. And there's been some discussion around it. I think a lot of discussion has been very pedestrian. I don't think people are talking about it enough because this development has some very, very serious ramifications, especially for young people who are now coming into the activist world and are out there putting in work and organizing folks in their communities who wonder what it was like to face oppression in the 60s and 70s, like many of us old heads did, and many of them are at the risk of finding out. And so this is nothing new. We have COINTELPRO today. It's called the U.S. Patriot Act. And there's nothing new in the provisions of the COINTELPRO program was to discredit, disrupt, misinformation, and neutralize. So we see this as a way to disrupt movement, a way to discredit legitimate movements against empire. So we see the state and its goons are up to their old tricks. So we want to start off talking to Senyaka, getting his take on that. But before we do that, Senyaka, can you explain to our audience who may not be initiated, what is the Malcolm X grassroots movement?
Yeah, so the Malcolm X grassroots movement fundamentally is an organization that's about national liberation of what we call the new African nation, meaning those Africans here who went through chattel slavery became a nation through that process. Also includes the descendants of newly arrived Africans who kind of blend in with the Africans who've been here for a couple of centuries. We organize ourselves around 6 principles. So self-defense, end to genocide, human rights, freedom for political prisoners and prisoners of war, reparations, and an end to sexist oppression. Right? So if you're a new African and you're down with those principles, you should be part of the Malcolm X grassroots movement. And we have chapters across the country. And if you want more information, you can go to our website, mxgm.org.
All right. Okay. So now we're another staple of the show again, what we've been doing. You can put this together. We still want to talk a bit about the BIE. Mm-hmm. And we know the Malcolm X grassroots movement is one of the groups involved in the movement to free our political prisoners and prisoners of war, and have been involved in that. And so going back to the black identity extremists and COINTELPRO, or COINTEL 2.0 now, many of our political prisoners of war fell into this
Mm-hmm.
this state trap and were captured and have been in prison for over 40 years now, or been forced into exile, or were even murdered through doing this. And as a result of out there, like young people are now doing, out there fighting against the empire, fighting against racism and economic deprivation, and the independence and self-determination of black people in this country, or we say new Africans in this country, they came under the radar and were targeted. So I say there's ramifications to what's happening right now. Right. So you want to talk about how that's all related?
Yeah. So anytime you have, I mean, this goes back as far as we've been in this country, right? It goes back to slave catchers, the snitch networks that have been in existence in this country for forever, right? And so anytime you have resistance, organized resistance against oppression, the people in power are going to be, they're going to have it in their interest to repress you, right? And they do so in an organized way. We talk about COINTELPRO, the FBI's counterintelligence program, and a lot of our people got caught up in that. And one thing to note that's critical for folks, it wasn't just focused in on the organizations. It also had a destabilizing influence on the social base of the people that our organizations would recruit from. Right? So part of it involved the FBI going after organizations like the Black Panther Party, the Republic of New Africa, American Indian Movement, lots of organizations. And basically at the time breaking the law, setting people up, doing illegal wiretaps, infiltrating their organizations, causing rivalries that didn't need to exist in the first place. So for example, the piece, one of the things some of our elders told us was some of what was going on between what's known as the cultural nationalists and the revolutionary nationalists wasn't a natural beef. All right, that was the FBI stimulating and triggering infighting amongst our movement, and basically separating out folks into two camps. All right, and a lot of bloodshed got caused because of that. All right, currently, the United States has, though they always denied, the United States has several prisoners of war and political prisoners, as well as exiles. Among them was our comrade Mutulu Shakur, who is one of the founders and a member of the Malcolm X grassroots movement. He's locked up in Victorville, illegally being held past his release date. He was supposed to be released February of last year. He's coming up on parole. He comes up for a parole review in April of next year. And this man is an acupuncturist. He opened up the Lincoln Detox Center in New York. Did a lot of work. He was one of the people that was a pioneer in treating heroin and opioid addicts through acupuncture. And so now we've got this opioid crisis. It wasn't a crisis according to the government when it was hitting us, but it's an opioid crisis now hitting all these people. And somebody like Mutulu, if he was out, could be of great benefit to a lot of folks in the community with his knowledge and expertise on these things. There's a lot of acupuncturists around the country that got inspired by him. He's somebody that put his life on the line for his people, somebody who continues to be somebody who continues to strive for the liberation of people, strive for doing what's best for his folks. And it's past time for him to be out. So we're definitely pushing for that. Folks can get more information on MutuluShakur.com.
All right. So I would also like to point out that Dr. Mutulu Shakur is the stepfather of Tupac Shakur.
That's right.
All right. And he's a very well respected brother in the community. Senyaka talked about he was curing people with opioid or heroin addiction at the Lincoln Detox Center, but he came under target then.
Right.
This was a Serve the People program. It was a Black Panther. He went into the Black Liberation Army. And the Governor Rockefeller's foundation, or Governor Rockefeller was funding the Lincoln Detox Center. And what they were doing, their program through the Rockefeller folks with funding the center wasn't getting people off of addictions, right? But giving them another form of drug called methadone.
Right.
And if people know about methadone is just as addicting as heroin is. You still get a Jones when you don't have it, and so much. And Dr. Matula Shakur says this is not what we need, and he was curing it with acupuncture. And you think Rockefeller would think that was a great thing, and he says no, you gotta do the methadone, and they refused it, right? They refused to get off that, not use acupuncture, and so the Rockefeller people shut them down, boarded it up. Well, these folks who care so much about their community, they went back in there and took it over. Right. And the Rockefellers didn't think it was politically to go out and think nothing was going to happen out of that. So these are people, again, we got to be reminded that we cannot call ourselves having a movement and neglect our political prisoners and prisoner of war who are in there for defending the people. Right. And defending the people and serving the people. This is what they were doing. I hear a lot of young people talking about we need to have these programs serve the people. Well, these people are doing it, so you cannot forget about them. And their relationship to the oppressive state apparatus is related to this day too. So we cannot forget it. We say any movement that neglects our political prisoner of war is a sham movement. And I'm saying that it's a sham movement, and I'm talking about not just movements germane to Black liberation, but any other movement. I'm talking about the anti-war movement, the feminist movement, all of that. You cannot separate that, because you got to remember one thing that was said in the meeting with Nixon, and I can't remember one of the aides who wrote it in his book. And Nixon said, well, after all, we have to face it. The problem is the blacks. Not because the blacks so much was tearing everything up and burning the country down, right? And making demands. It's because we led our movement was a revolutionary movement. And because of that, people took lessons. And then you had the feminist movement. And then you had the LGBT movement and other movements, the environment movement, took their lessons from those movements. Right? That's why we said we got to build that bus to travel down that road, but ain't going to be no back seats this time on that bus. We ain't sitting back seat. And a lot of those movements have benefited from those movements, and our people are sitting in prison or being killed off. So that's why it's very important to understand. And that's what Nixon was saying. That's the problem, black, because now everybody's moving that direction too. Right? You're out there out front. And so these are what these brothers represent. They're coming up. It was Herman Bell's ready to have a parole hearing. He was the one that was beat down by these guards. He's 69 years old, but the charge has been dropped. He's been taken out of solitary confinement. So it's very important. We're going to be having some events coming up. We're going to be pushing this, and we got some actions we're going to be planning, but we want awareness and support and the release of our political prisoners. If they don't want to release them here, they have exchange programs. They can release them. So anyway, I'm getting a signal. I once again want to thank Senyaka Bryan for joining us on Message to the Grassroots. Right on. Thank you, and we will be inviting him back with some more updates. You've been listening to KEXU 96.1, Poor People's Revolutionary Radio and TV, FM, LP. And as we say, what's the call? Free them all. Good night. All right. All script free.
Yo, can we there's an event coming up next week.
Keep talking.
Yeah. So next week there's a event coming up. There's a sister. Her name's Sahar Francis. She represents an organization called Adamir that does legal work for Palestinian political prisoners in Palestine. And she's coming out to the Bay Area next Thursday, November 16th. It's from 7 to 8:30 at Eastside Arts Alliance. With her, and it's from Critical Resistance, from Archives, Baker Center, and so the opportunity to hear about what's on internet with political prisoners. A lot of folks in Palestine are going through the same through here, but then also raise awareness and raise the connections between the political prisoners here and political prisoners in Palestine. And quiet as it's kept, you know, like when the hunger strike. Yeah,
it's gonna cut you in a second. So.
Okay. Quiet as it's kept, this political prisoners issue is something that's going on worldwide, and we need to stand up for each other.
So we have a time thing. Right. So when I say good night, it's over.
Yeah, I hear you.
You can't, cause we're not editing yet, but it's all good. Cause we nitty gritty shitty radio, right? That's right. We hood radio up in here. We gotta keep it raw, y'all. Huh? Well, I guess it's very good. I gotta get the best guess like this. That's what makes it. That's what makes me.
Right.
All right. Thank you, bro. You can take out if you want.
Yeah,
I can take out what we do, but you know what we want.
Yeah. Yeah. Right on. Yeah, I'm gonna be back around. Next year we're gonna do big push for
everybody. Knows
yeah, we're gonna do a big push for Matthew next year, so we're gonna need all the help we can get.
Yeah, we got the anniversary of Jericho coming up next.
That's right, man. Right.
Come on, stop recording.
Seems weird timing out here, huh? Huh?
She good?
Huh?
Yeah.
My freaking phone.
She would be proud that we hauled it down the floor.
Yeah. About OC timeout, but there's instant.
Uh-oh.
It's so messed up. He's doing this big like hip hop thing, and they're doing it